it's an interesting back and forth that John seems to be doing with the people, and maybe even John himself. John was a wild man, according to the legend, because he lived in the wild, and he had such wild ideas, and he probably, according to all descriptions of him, was a wild man to see in public. And there's been a few preachers like that over the years. You can probably think of a few, maybe a few politicians even. But it's curious to me, the very last verse from today says, and with many other exhortations, he proclaimed the good news to the people. I wonder if they considered what he was exhorting them to do sounded like good news. Because certainly today, when you say these kind of things, people don't naturally take it as good news. Just for example, what he said to the soldiers. Now, what he said to the soldiers, you could apply that to any person in the mercantile business, any person in the receptiveness of wages for service done. And John the Baptizer, when they said, what do we do to get forgiven? What do we do to get this good news? What do we have to do to be baptized into a new life and be made clean? He said, be happy with what you have. Don't exhort more by threats and false accusations. Be satisfied with your wages. How many folks today would you say are satisfied with what they receive as wages? Wages doesn't just necessarily mean money. It means respect or acknowledgement or gratitude for a job well done. And what it seems to me that this wild man was saying to soldiers or people who were under a certain discipline, you're not doing that. And because you're not doing that, something else is happening that's run afoul of God's understanding of how we should be with each other. I wonder if they received that as good news. But again, it says in today's reading that these people were filled with expectation and thought he was the Messiah. And he came right back and says, I'm not the Messiah. I'm just telling you these things. The Messiah is going to come along, and what does he say that after he pronounces the greatness of this person coming after him? Does he say he's coming to hold your hand?
No.
To tell you how grateful he is about how you've been living and acting? Is he coming to give you more wages, more respect?
That's not the way it works.
Or is he coming with this winnowing fork and he's just going to start ripping at the threshing floor, throwing chaff to be burned in this unquenchable fire? So many times over the years, many good evangelists, and I underline good, would use this unquenchable fire to get the attention of the people, to threaten them with unquenchable fire. So there's a part of me that's always wished that John would have just been a little more calm.
Yes. That would be good.
That would have been nice.
Better, yeah.
Because if what you're looking at is an accusation from John, you're going to see that as a way to pressure people into acting right. And the last thing that we want is a bunch of people acting right. We want people being right. I don't want to act right. I don't want to think right. It's like that old thing of, I've used it and my kids have used it and everybody I've ever known's used it, that says, well, that wasn't my intention. And then, of course, the old saw of, well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So if we just have good intentions, are we going to end up in this unquenchable fire? Well, the church, I'm sad to say, over the years has used unquenchable fire to get people in line.
Does it work?
I don't think it does. Because on one level, it works with a child to frighten them into doing something. On another level, and we're living in a time of the Me Too movement that says, if I'm a woman or a person who has been weaker than the people in charge, but specifically a woman or specifically a person of the color that is not the dominant race, is going to be threatened. And that most people who have lived a life under threat can tell you that there doesn't seem to be any good news out there.
Not for them, no.
Not for anyone. And so, even if we look just at what I was saying a little bit earlier in the past few weeks about those children who are incarcerated in the United States of America because they had the temerity to come here with hope, they were met with unquenchable fire, because that's our understanding of how we're going to be treated, so we're going to treat that way. If you turn back to page 3 in the beginning of today's gospel lesson, I like the way that John the Baptizer starts off by saying, "You brood of vipers." Monty was telling me that the service he was at this morning, that of course the minister, the priest there, went after that verse as well. I've heard so many different angles on this brood of vipers business, but I wonder if I've ever understood it in the light of the victim. A true victim, a person who has been terrorized, not the victimhood that we here in the West cling to with such righteousness. This brood of vipers is followed by the sentence, "Who warned you to flee from the wrath to come?" Where'd you get the idea that there was a wrath coming? Who told you? And then he immediately skips to, do you say to yourself, we have been ancestored in because we are the children of Abraham? And then he says the most remarkable thing that harkens back to the prophets, harkens back to Moses and points toward Jesus himself. God could make children of Abraham out of these stones. What does that mean to you? If you're told that the living God of the universe could make an army out of stones or dry bones, does that mean God is counting on me to gather together with other me's and say, we are the chosen ones, when we are the same as the stones underneath our feet? Maybe that intimates that all of this is chosen. And that God isn't looking for people to claim an inheritance. God isn't looking for a people who are hiding behind fearful words to project them upon others. But God is looking for people who would do the following. If you have 2 coats, you must share with anyone who has none. Whoever has food must do likewise. The list could have gone on, but the message couldn't be more clear. If God can make disciples out of stones, and I have 2 coats, who am I to hold on to them when my sisters and brothers of this earth have none. That is an action and a mindset that has nothing to do with how he ends up here with this person filled with expectation if I'm doing right. If I do the right thing. No, you are the right thing. You must be the right thing. Because if you are righteous, you've already been cleansed of your own iniquity, of freed from your own unquenchable fire, and a new unquenchable fire I would project is upon us. And that's the unquenchable fire to be these people of God who would seek out a child in a manger and give all that we had to be a part of that movement of giving and receiving into the church, or in other words, into God's people's heart, the protection and the advocacy that they not just so desperately need, but that they so much deserve. That's a baptism of fire. And that's what John says that this coming Messiah is going to do, to baptize us in that kind of fire. And that kind of fire can take you through walls. That kind of fire can take the church into a new century with a meaning that it has lost for the past 2,000 years. I think that is what we look for in Advent. That's the gift we want under the tree, because that's the gift we want to give. That, to me, speaks of hope. So I can walk side by side with those people who came from war-torn horror fields like Guatemala and take a child with me who may or may not be up to the journey, because at the end of the line, I see hope. And they have been met with unquenchable fire, and it is our duty to say, no, that's not okay. That's not God. That's not Jesus. That is not okay. And if we're filled with unquenchable fire of peace and giving and understanding that we are the same as the rocks below our feet and held that precious by this universe, then we have everything we need to stop it. To me, that's the good news to the people that John was telling them. Bless you, John. Amen.
Amen.